In this video, I will discuss how I used media technologies in the construction, research, planning and evaluation stages of my project. At the very beginning of the course, I had never used Photoshop or InDesign before, so they were completely new to me. I had a lot of experience using PowerPoint and some experience with WordPress as well. By the time I began my A2 project, I had gained basic proficiency in both InDesign and Photoshop. My skills in InDesign were far better than my Photoshop skills, and still are. At the start of this year, I had already used a DSLR camera a lot, so I was very familiar with a lot of the basics and some more advanced skills. In my research and planning, I didn't really use Photoshop for anything. This is probably because I avoided it due to my lack of proficiency. I used InDesign in order to create my media pack. I realised that I must have improved from last year because I created it in less than a day, showing my confidence and competence in the use of InDesign had vastly improved. However, I had evidently not learned everything, as I tried to add a bullet point but did not know how. In the end, I made a full stop in a separate text box, increased the size, then used that. I also got faster and better at making videos in PowerPoint, as I used those frequently throughout this stage. I learned that it was a good idea to save multiple copies of my slideshows in different places, as my files occasionally corrupted if they failed to export properly. I noticed the majority of improvements in my skill during the construction stage. At this stage, I had to use Photoshop quite a lot as I used it to create my masthead designs. I found this really difficult and a lot of my early designs were useless. However, I did gain some new skills as I was able to merge a circle and a picture of a bauble to create my final masthead. However, I do not think that I became any more proficient as I quickly forgot how I did it. As such, I think a key disadvantage to using Photoshop is how complicated it is. Because of this, I still tried to avoid it, despite the advantage that it was better at manipulating and creating images. I also used InDesign a lot, as this was the program I used to make my magazine. Yet again, I feel that the only thing that I improved at this stage was my speed and confidence, as I made the majority of my cover in one lesson and did not need to alter it much afterwards. I do, however, think that my photography skills vastly improved. I got much better pictures than I had the year before. Due to the improvement in my skill at composing my images, I took the chance at doing some food photography. I had not previously attempted this as it required more skill than I had at the time. At this stage, I learned that my camera lens was not really right for some of the really close-up shots I wanted to take of the mince pies. As such, I had to try other things. However, I now know what kind of lens is appropriate for that. The photography on my contents page was also far better than it was last year. My models looked far less awkward and my photography was more varied. My pictures were also better framed and the lighting was often better. I also attempted to create the bokeh effect, which would have worked had I got a more appropriate lens. At the very least, I learned that some lenses are not suitable for certain jobs. I also learned how to make pictures black and white on my camera, which I did not know how to do prior to this year's project work. While I fear that I did not learn much about InDesign beyond what I did last year, I did learn to change the opacity of shapes, as I used this to create the translucent faded grey pattern on my contents page. One of the other occasions on which I used Photoshop was for my billboard. In here, I managed to wrap my text around my masthead, which I could never have done last year. However, I only managed to do this by following instructions. And much like with my masthead, I have since forgotten how to do it entirely, so I did not learn anything. For my evaluation, my main tools were PowerPoint and my Tono USB condenser microphone. While I do not feel that my PowerPoint skills could have improved much, I feel that I became far more competent at speaking into my microphone. I had to pause the audio recording less, making it smoother, and I learned how to speak more clearly. Overall, I feel that the audio quality of my evaluation videos has made immense improvements from last year.